Everybody, this is just a quick video showing you who's going at each position in these rookie mock drafts. If you think you know who's going to go at this position, leave a comment down below. Who do you think it's going to be? And see if any of my guests who've been on agree with you. And before we get into it, hey, hit that like, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. We're on a march towards, 500 subscribers. I'd love to be able to do it before we get into this season of football. That'd be awesome. So help me out and let's go. Let's see who's going at this draft pick, shall we?
What I'm going to go right here next is Jackson Smith-Njigba. He went 120 in the NFL draft to Seattle. And something that's being really talked about with Seattle right now, and this isn't really advice here, but it's like a little aside here. Seattle is showing us something. They're really showing us something with their draft on day 1 and day 2. And they really are investing in the offense. I think they're trying to tell us they do not want to be the same old boring Seattle Seahawks that were grind and pound and win with defense, because they have a lot of holes on defense and they addressed it later in the draft and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to get at is when you're investing in Jackson Smith-Njigba in the first round, when you already have a lot invested in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, that's telling me that you want to upgrade your offense. And then you have what people consider one of the best young running backs in the league. And then you spend a premium draft pick on Zach Charbonnet. That's telling me that they want to become more offensive. And I think a big mistake people take is that they take last year's advice or what happened last year in the NFL and they apply it to going forward as if that was predictive. When, like I said earlier, it was descriptive. And just think back. And so now, but that being said, I'm going to put a big but back here, and I'm going to do it myself here because, we're on the hot seat and we're having fun. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they were telling us by going out and signing or trading a first and signing AJ Brown to a big deal that they wanted to get better on offense. They wanted to invest in a passing, and what happened? They took a big step forward. So what happens, roll back, and now people are just overlooking. They're looking at, Jackson Smith-Njigba going to Seattle. That's bad news. And, look, it's not great. He did definitely, let me rephrase it. It's not as good as it could have been. And then, Charbonnet goes to Seattle as well. That's disappointing. I got Charbonnet yesterday in a draft at 206 because of this. So at 206 in a Superflex draft with a lot of sharp people in it, I got him at 206.
Wow.
And I think it's because, you know what? Seattle has been a laughing stock for a long time because people think of them as a slow paced offense that just want to, they never let Russell Wilson cook and all of these different things. Actually, Seattle was like a top 10 defense in pace and pass attempts last year. And I think over the last 2 years, they've been one of the more their pace of play and their pass attempts per game have been up there. So not only are they showing this with their play calling and their overall offensive philosophy, but now they're investing draft capital and contracts into it as well. What they're signing DK Metcalf and what they've given to Tyler Lockett. I guess maybe that we should just think that, hey, they want to be better on offense, and why not invest in players on what could become one of the more mispriced offenses in the league, and it could be easily be a top 10 offense next year.
Yeah, I don't see why not. They've got absolute slam dunk players all over on that offense now. Geno Smith, while people might still have questions about Geno Smith, he was perfectly serviceable last year. That's not a guy that you're going to be really worried about, I don't think. And then you've added Jackson Smith-Njigba to an already super strong wide receiver room. And by the way, you've got 2 of the best young running backs in the league to kind of back that up now. Love it, right? They're definitely going places.
Yeah. So look, the target competition, is going to hurt probably JSN initially. Don't get me wrong here, but a piece of advice that you hear a lot is, bet on talent. Talent rises to the top. And that's what I believe in Jackson Smith-Njigba's talent. He had an incredible year back in 2021. I think it was 2021 when he led Ohio State, some incredible players. He led all their wide receivers there. And he's just, people want to knock his athleticism. He actually tested just fine. He tested very well. He actually, and they want people you should adjust because it was a pro, or they actually didn't have to, it was the combine. Never mind. He ran just fine. And I think while he's not going to just be this amazing player on the outside, and if he ever plays from the outside, he might not be a starter and 2 wide receiver sets and blah, 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 blah. JSN's good. He's really good. And I'm just a bet on the talent. And yeah, so that's what I really was kind of disappointed that I couldn't like put my flag in him a little earlier and go, yeah, I want JSN at 102 or 103 because that's how much I like him as a talent. But because of, the initial landing spot and some of the other just the way it's going to play out is that I can't be quite as high, and it can be tempered. You got to still maintain your process a little bit.
I also think that I think he's better than Tyler Lockett, right? And I'd even go and say he's better than DK Metcalf too. Like I wouldn't be too shocked if he ends up actually just by being Jackson Smith and Jigba, just ends up, Geno Smith falling in love with him and ends up being the guy on that team. Actually, I think he's that good. That might be a bit too hot take.
Hashtag certified inferno. It is the rubber stamp it right there, baby. Look, that is in the range of outcomes. I think he's that good of a talent. Now, will that happen because I think DK Metcalf is really good, and I think Tyler Lockett is consistently undervalued. Yeah. But his contract situation is who knows what he's going to be around here. But the point being is, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba still has a lot of paths to success, and I'm going to bet on him. And look, that's I really like him as a player, and now I'm just rambling because I'm falling in love with him. My eyes are getting glossy, and I'm just starting to think about if you want more of my thoughts about, there's a free article over at DLF for my Jackson Smith-Njigba, over 1,000 words on his college production, his film, and what I think his value is prior to the pre-draft, and all that is rinse and repeat, and I still believe in that right now.
Nice. So definitely go check that out over on DLF. So we got Jackson Smith-Njigba locked up there. And next up, we got the pick 5 of the first round. So who are you going with here, Matt?
Yeah, this is a real tough one for me because this guy and the guy that I got at the 106, literally light for light for me. I've flipped them back and forth numerous times just in the last few days since the NFL draft. Before the draft, it was easily Jackson Smith-Njigba for me. And then the draft capital that I saw that Jahmyr Gibbs got, I think it shocked everybody. And that kind of made me think, well, okay, there's obviously a clear plan for him in Detroit. So, as I say, it's literally flipped and flopped for me numerous times. I think at this moment in time, I'm now leaning more towards Jahmyr Gibbs. I just think being that running back, we know that the positional value in fantasy, it's something that people are always chasing. Having these young running backs in fantasy is obviously great. You feel like you're getting that insulated value. And then the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs is this receiving back as well is going to be great for PPR leagues. As I mentioned, the fact that Detroit were willing to take him so early, the 12th overall pick, I think it shocked everybody seeing how high he went. But Detroit clearly have a big desire to bring him into the team. The fact that they were happy to move on DeAndre Swift, who I think has been a great receiving back for them over the last couple of years, just couldn't stay healthy, which was a shame to see. But they've obviously got a plan for their running backs and how they want to use them. Jahmyr Gibbs obviously fits that bill perfectly. So for me at this moment in time, he is now going to be my 105. But as I say, I've flipped between him and JSN because I think both are going to be great for fantasy for years. But just getting that positional value at running back just edges it for Jahmyr Gibbs for me at the moment.
Yeah, I think if you're at 1-5 here, you might almost be like just looking at your team and being like, right, how am I at running back here? I'm actually, you can never be too safe at running back, but if you are like fairly safe, then you might want to go with wide receiver, or if you're needing running backs, you might want to go with the running back here. I think both players are pretty, pretty good. And there's been a lot of chat about, this class isn't what it was hyped up to be and things like that. But we've got 6 huge players here for fantasy. Some might even say, 7, some might even push it to 8. But the top 6, I think, are like really locked in. And having a first round where you have 6 kind of slam dunk prospects, that's really, really good. I still think it's a good class. Maybe not quite what it was hyped up to be, but that's about as good as you can ask for usually, getting 6 of the first round that are really elite.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Every draft it's been a consensus top 6. I've yet to see anybody break into that top 6. So I just say I feel like it's a real strong class at the top end, and I think there's a few more there as well that I'm happy to take. I just feel like I think that the thing with this draft class was a lot of people saying was how deep it was and how strong it was in depth, and then we're a couple of days removed from the NFL draft, and it's like you mentioned, it's maybe the top 8 or 9 players, and then it's kind of like, well, I don't feel great about being at the back end of the first anymore. Yeah. Whereas before I was hyping up mid-seconds as being potential great value in fantasy. Whereas now I just don't feel great about it.
No, not at all. So you kind of hinted at this, a 1-5. Is it Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah, it's definitely Jahmyr Gibbs now. I think there's I wouldn't say it's a tier break to JSN, just because I think long term JSN is going to be incredible. But just for Jahmyr Gibbs, for me, is a top 5 dynasty running back right now. I've got him as my running back 5. I really do think that the ceiling is there for Jahmyr Gibbs. I think with JSN, I think you're looking more longer term. I think I think he can get top 7, top 8 is in terms of dynasty wide receiver. I don't think he's there yet. Whereas I think you're getting Jahmyr Gibbs as top 5 running back right now. So I think the value is with Gibbs. I think obviously the Lions are doing an incredible job putting together that roster. I think personally, I think they're ready to compete. I think you saw with Jamal Williams last year get so many touchdowns on the ground. I think this is a team that's ready to win, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get plenty of catching opportunities, because if you think Jameson Williams is suspended, there's not a massive amount of weapons outside of Amon Ra. You've got Sam Laporta, obviously rookie tight end, coming in there. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to come out and catch so many passes out the gate. Obviously, Jared Goff, the quarterback, loves to dump it off. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs, I think hopefully they use him in the right way, because obviously he's not the biggest running back. But yeah, I think that the sky is the limit for Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's a top 5 running back immediately. So to get him here, I think is really good value.
Yeah, do you know what? Everyone's obviously, quite rightly talking about, his pass catching and Jared Goff and dumping off. What's kind of being like slid under the radar a little bit is how good that Detroit Lions offensive line is. Like, they're one of the best in the league, and there's going to be pretty big holes for Jahmyr Gibbs to run into. And if he gets free, like, you forget how, like, he's so fast as well. Like, so there's a home run threat there, along with all of that, PPR, just gobbling up those points that way. He's also got, he could break off these like 50, 60-yard runs if he gets an alleyway. So I think you're absolutely spot on, mate. I think top 5 is, some people might be like, well, it's a bit much, but I think it's spot on with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm really excited to see what he can do.
There's just so many question marks around a lot of the running backs outside of Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, who's coming back off the injury, and obviously Bijan. You get down to Barkley, who's playing on the franchise tag. There's plenty of running backs that have got question marks, or they're getting up there in age. So I just think Jahmyr Gibbs just slots in nicely inside the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, even those 3 you said, Jonathan Taylor coming off an injury, CMC, like constantly injured, Breece Hall coming off an injury. Like, it's tough at the top at running back. Like, it really is. So yeah, I think Gibbs rightfully slots in there, even though he's not played yet. But I'm excited. And the other 2 guys are obviously Jahmyr Gibbs and Jackson Smith-Njigba. What order is it you have them in?
I have Gibbs before him, and that's just it. I would say it's the draft capital, but I just think that Gibbs is going to see a lot more over the next 2 years. I feel like Gibbs is going to see a lot more ball than what JSN is. I know at the Seahawks, he's not going to not see anything. He's not wide receiver 3 on that team. I think he is wide receiver, I'd say 1B, and DK's 1A. But DK is going to require targets where I don't think anyone at the Lions is going to take away from Gibbs. So I think on the to me personally, I think I'd take Gibbs over JSN. But if you're at the 5 and you've got a good running back room, then JSN's your guy. Yeah. If you're at the 5 and you've got a good wide receiver room, then Gibbs is your guy. It's to me, it's seeing what your team needs are there. I think Gibbs is the one that's going to be a better player over the next 2 years, and he's probably going to see more volume. But I just think it's more what your team needs than anything else.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm not going to argue with anyone who's going to take JSN at 5 and Gibbs at 6 or flip it around like this. I think you got to study your team and evaluate it. And if you've got a team that's already like locked and loaded at wide receiver, and you think Smith-Njigba's probably just going to sit in your bench most of the time, go for Gibbs and see him sort of deal out running back. If you think Gibbs is a guy, I'll put him in my taxi squad for a bit. Maybe it's like, take the guy there when it's like so close. Just take the guy who's going to help your team more next year and next 2 years. So yeah, think that's absolutely spot on. And then the real draft is now, isn't it? Right, mate?
So we've spoke about that, but we haven't actually got your 105 pick on the board. Is it going to be Bryce Young, or are you going to venture over to one of these wide receivers?
No, I think here it would be Bryce Young. Like I said, like the quarterbacks are so important in this. You cannot be stuck without one. So I think he is, he's good value there at 1.5. If Jackson Smith and Jigba went somewhere else, right? If he was on the Kansas City Chiefs, if he was on the LA Chargers, if he was on a more like lucrative team, then I would maybe consider it. But just considering his landing spot, he's got, some question marks over him, just like Bryce Young does. So I'm happy taking Bryce Young there at 105.
Yeah. I think that's, you can't let him drop any further than that. But that brings us to the 106. Are you going to finish off the chalky first 6 picks of any draft and complete that set?